She stands over this assembly, a new skeleton rearranged from the remains of many, and she sings, and as she sings, muscle and flesh rush back to the bones laid out before her, before you. She sings more, deeper, from the calm blue sea inside her belly, and the creature inhales, exhales, breathes. The woman, the bone woman, does not stop singing. Although she has barely any breath left in her, she cannot stop now. Her song resonates for miles. You have never heard it, but I have. Her voice is a warm, brave house deep in a cold, dark wood. The new creature's eyes open. She rises, steadies herself, flexes her hands, and runs like a manic heartbeat on a monitor toward the horizon. When I was a little girl, my mother and I played a game called I Believe. It's exactly what it sounds like. The kicker, the real challenge, was that I had to give reasons. I believe there's no such thing as monsters, I said, because there aren't any in the Museum of Natural History. I believe that you should name my brother Elmo when he comes, I said, because everyone loves Elmo, and so everyone will love him. I believe Grandpa's ghost comes to say goodnight sometimes, I said. Because? She asked, hungry with hope. Because sometimes when I wake up, his picture isn't in the same spot. Back then, when I mentioned him, her face fell or stiffened into a mask. It was her job, she thought, not to let me see her pain. Nowadays, though, a kind of peace comes over her when he comes up, like she's looking forward to the reunion. What do you believe, I asked. I believe, she said, that you will always be my baby. Because, I answered, because that's how moms work. Because once you're my baby, you'll always be my baby. No matter how old you get, I'll always keep you safe. What does she dream? My husband asks, points his head at Audrey, our dog who is sleeping, paws trembling, nose twitching with odors only she in all the world right now can smell. She yelps, she barks, and the bark is distant, an echo from a cave far away. What does she imagine? She imagines tennis balls, I say, and squirrels and open fields and leftovers spilled out on the street. She imagines our apartment is chock full of rats and flies to catch. But as of yesterday, maybe big blue hands reaching out for her? He looks at me, skeptical. For him, one of these details is not like the others. Big blue hands. The car wash, I say. Yesterday, we brought her through a drive-through car wash for the first time. Imagination comes from real things, I say. That's what imagination is. Real things rearranged to create a new reality. Do you believe that? He asks. I do not want to, but I do. How much does choice factor into belief? If I were to choose to believe in flat earth theory, for example, would I be able to? If I decided right now to believe that Donald Trump is a good man, would such a thing be possible? If I wanted very badly to trust in an afterlife, could I succeed? And which afterlife, out of all the afterlives we humans have invented, for the same reason I write this now, which afterlife would my newfound belief system pick? I am no doctor, no chemist. I am at times uncertain that what I do contains value, and if it does, what that value is, what my work is for, who or what it might help or heal. And so, when I come across this sentence in a book, I cling to it, absorb it like a rock receives and holds on to heat. Story is medicine. But how, I want to know, can the medicinal value of story be measured? If you want to try to measure the immeasurable, there are many ways to gauge a person's emotional development. Here's one. The first time my mom had cancer, breast, I was 13. I didn't once see her without a wig. The second time my mom had cancer, ovarian, we went wig shopping together. I was 23. It was only then I realized how much effort she'd expended all those years ago, how hard it must have been to keep me from seeing her without that wig. This, the third time, ovarian metastasized to the spine. She accepts my offer to drive from my artist residency in Woodstock to New Jersey and to hold her in bed while she weeps. Here is a joke. There was a house painter known throughout all the land for his honesty, who secretly thinned his paint with turpentine. When he was found out, he asked, "What, oh, what should I do?" "Repaint," the people said. "Repaint and thin no more." The oncologist tells us while pushing on my mother's hand, testing her resistance. "How are you doing?" a friend asks. Every time I open my computer, I want to say I search spinal metastases, ovarian cancer metastases, sometimes with the addition of survival rates or prognosis, sometimes not. I look at 5-year survival trends daily. I want to say, frantic to see them change. I devour percentages, read every peer-reviewed study available on Gemzar and carboplatin, on cancer that's metastasized to the spine, the bone, on the success of proton therapy. Instead, I say, I'm trying to avoid the internet. It's just too much right now. Why is that, she asks. Because it can tell me almost everything, I say, except the future. Because, I do not say, I am desperate to measure what is immeasurable. What's that, she does not ask. The rest of my mother's life. See, I'm looking for numbers here. I'm looking for a crystal ball, an oracle, a seer of the future. So how, I want to know, can the medicinal value of story be measured? Some beliefs don't have becauses, I said. My elementary school was only a 5-minute walk away from home, 2 suburban blocks with landscaped lawns and yawning Bijans staring out bay windows, but still she came for me every day. The night prior, she and my dad had bickered at the dinner table. The classic argument, atheism versus religion/afterlife, always a debate she couldn't win, not because her because was weaker necessarily, but because, I think now, it was not her intention to win. It was her intention to keep her beliefs safe and sheltered from criticism. My father was a proud member of the Skeptic Society. My mother liked going to temple from time to time, mostly in the high holy days, my grandparents' yard sites. It was pretty much Judaism light, which is why I still don't understand my father's need to spar. After my grandfather died, she bought books about the white light, read John Edward, the TV psychic, not the politician, visited all the mediums Central New Jersey had to offer, hungry for connection. Now walking home, I was trying to show her that I was on her side, that it was okay not to have becauses, but you see, I missed the point. My beliefs have becauses, and your father's do too. They all have becauses, she said. Sometimes we just don't know them yet, and sometimes people just don't want to say them out loud. Dad doesn't believe in God, and his because is that he thinks religions destroyed the world. That's one of his becauses. What's the other? He wants everything to make sense, she said. He wants the truth to be what he can see and smell and touch and hear and taste. It gets very complicated for him after that. What's your because? I asked. I believe in an afterlife because Grandpa told me that when he died, before they brought him back from the first heart attack, he saw a white light. Then there was a long walk, and he found a beautiful, colorful house. Aunt Ida and Aunt Dottie and Uncle Chubby and Uncle Sidney and Aunt Lily. They were all there, his parents too. Everyone he ever loved who died was waiting there for him. So your because is what Grandpa said? That's one of them. And the other? The other is because I want to, because it makes me happier to live that way. I am an indecisive person. Sometimes, if I want to figure out whether or not I believe something, I write it down to feel the ink of the words, to see how it looks when it dresses up in the English alphabet as marks on a page. If I can't decide after I've written it once, I write it 3 times in a row, to feel the rhythm of the possible truth in my hand. Sometimes when I still can't figure out whether or not I believe something, I say it out loud, to hear it wearing the music of the English language. And if I'm still unsure, I'll write about it. I'll set the scene and enter. For a while after the diagnosis, I couldn't wrap my head around narrative, or maybe it's better to say that I couldn't wrap myself within it, couldn't cover or comfort myself inside the blanket of it. My mind refused to make order of the chaos of life, as story tends to do. No analgesics for you, my mind said, no shelter, no structure for this chaos, not yet. And I was at an artist residency to write fiction. But still, I left my novel for a while. Instead, I went for walks in the woods, gathered rocks and twigs, but most especially fallen leaves, the bones of the plant life around me. I let the sunset burn after images into my eyes. Instead of writing fantastical worlds in which ancient plants extended life and chimerical creatures roamed, I sketched or painted the little weeds and flowers I found in the forest, trying to get right every vein of every leaf, every tiny hand of each root. I gave careful surgical attention to the leaf spines, noticed how the veins all fed from them. I turned away from abstractions and ideas, turned toward the tactile world. I became an observer, a witness, inventor of nothing, and recorder of everything. It was my job, my mission, not to distort reality, but to see, smell, taste, touch, hear, to faithfully learn these things, not just with my mind, but also with my body. When the hand draws what the eye sees, the body memorizes, takes into itself. When the hand draws, the thing drawn makes a home in our bodies. The stem of a sunflower, the midrib of a leaf, a feather's, I don't know how to pronounce it, rachis?
Rachis.
Thank you. The difference between a book and a gathering of pages, the Washington Monument, the bendable part of my desk lamp, tree trunks, the columns holding buildings up, suit ties. I see spines in everything now. It is with the spine that we divide the animal kingdom in two, vertebrate and invertebrate. It is with the spine as metaphor that we divide the strong from the weak. Don't you have any backbone? I know why it feels different this time, my friend said. I know why it's so much harder. Why, I asked. You can live without breasts, she said. You can live without ovaries, but you can't. She stopped, afraid she'd gone too far, crossed some line into recognition I wasn't ready for. I finished the sentence. You can't live without a spine. In the same book that claims story as medicine, I read this. In Mexico, women are said to carry the light of life. This light is located not in a woman's heart, not behind her eyes, but in her ovaries, where all the seed stock is laid down before she is even born. In college, a friend wrote a poem after his mother's hysterectomy. This poem modeled after Homer. Modeled on the tradition of Homer, he embarked on an epic journey across the lands and seas in search of his mother's ovaries, his first, now lost, home. I could write about my mother's ovaries, the place of origin for both the cancer and me. I could scribble on about my mother's body, how the same body that grew me grew this, how the same body that grew life grew a destructive force. I could ponder and dissect that, try to tackle it in an essay about forces of creation and destruction, compose a metaphorical tall tale about haunted eggs, parody Humpty Dumpty, but the truth is, I don't want to, not now. That would be missing the point. That would be making it about me. While I write, Audrey lies sleeping behind my chair, paws scampering. She snarls, a ghost of a growl, inhales deeply, exhales a series of whimpers, half bares her teeth, most of which are missing by now. What are you dreaming? I ask her, a whisper. There is no one around but the two of us. If my eyes fill up with tears, so be it. Are you dreaming of your puppies? Is someone taking them from you? She was 3 or 4 years old when found as a stray in heat. 3, I decide to believe, definitely 3. When she calls out these sounds from her dreams, this is what I imagine. Hail, thunder cracking. She, nameless and hungry, curled under a bench, making her body a fortress, a place of warmth and safety for 4 squealing pups, footsteps, her ears in antenna mode, heavy boots coming close, 2 large blue-gloved hands, each the size of her face. One hand places a small tower of saltines before her. While she eats, her babies are snatched. When she looks up, finally nourished, they're gone. I teach a fake writing class. Or maybe I should say I teach a writing class that orbits the theme of fakery. We talk about authenticity, disguise, costume, mimicry, etc., etc. For one project, I asked the students to write 2 memoirs. one real and one imagined, but both true in an emotional sense. I tell them something I am certain I believe, that what we imagine conveys something to others about our real selves. Here's another joke from the oncologist's office. Two old friends bump into each other at a gay bar. It's been years, one says. Can I push your stool in? That's for real. What does my imagining Audrey as a mother who's lost her pups tell you about me? You might think I'm sadistic, but we don't always imagine what we want to be truth. Maybe I see in her a mother figure. Maybe I see in myself a mother figure, the opportunity to soothe the pain of her possible loss. Maybe I want to see myself as her shelter from the storm, which, exaggerated to its most literal level, would mean that her life before me was full of wind and hail and cold, roofless nights bursting with loss. I realize I myself am completing the assignment I gave my students. That's this, what you're hearing now. When in class I ask which was more difficult to write, the real or the imagined memoir, most say the imagined. Hands down, one student says. I love them for this. I want to believe this for myself, but my students believe that writing an imagined scene is harder than writing a real one. When do I get to choose? I believe the doctor who says remission is possible, that medical advancements are coming in droves. Out the wazoo is the phrase he uses. My mother laughs a little at that, and I feel the laughter as a vibration, a zap of voltage, the way I believe her laughter must have felt when I lived in her belly. Now I store that laughter in my chest for safekeeping, a gold-wrapped gift I will open when I am desperate. I know this game well enough to understand I will be desperate. How do you feel? A friend asks. We are drinking flavored margaritas, but I don't know what flavor exactly mine is supposed to be. Submerged, I want to say, submerged but alert, like an ambulance driver underwater, like a child terrified of the dark, hiding under the thick weight of her blanket. Stuck inside a barbed wire fence, I want to say, but with a view of the Alps. There is death everywhere, I want to say, all around us. It is beastly, it is ruthless, it is sublime. Every moment is supercharged, I want to say. I feel like a little girl lost alone in the cold, dark woods, searching for a warm, brave, well-lit house that may or may not exist. I don't say that either. I'm okay, is what I say, taking it one day at a time. I do not believe the other doctors, the ones who say, and when this treatment stops working, as if it is inevitable, as if there are no other possible futures. My mother has always wanted to go to Greece. She's talked about it for years and years, put it off for reasons that multiplied rapidly, exponentially. First, she said, my birth, then my brother's, then life, her illness, our college, her illness, the wedding, her illness. But now she says, I'm going. Once all this crap is over, no one's going to stop me from going. I believe her. I believe she will travel to Greece. Because little me demands, nagging, ever the rule follower. I do not respond. You're breaking the rules of the game, she says. I put her in timeout. After a minute or two, she turns meekly my way. But I guess, she says, I guess some beliefs don't have becauses. One great thing about fiction, I tell my students, is that you get to live many, many lives. You get to live parallel universe versions of yourselves, your histories. You get to write new futures, be different yous, experience what you may not be able to in, quote, real, unquote, life. Somewhere in another world, in a world where story is medicine, there is a storyteller so profound, so riveting and moving that she cures her mother's illness with a work she wrote feverishly in a few soul-stomping weeks after the diagnosis came in. Go easy on yourself, my friend says. You're not made of magic. You can't expect yourself to work magic. But if I have no magic, what am I here for? Sometimes a disguise begins inside and moves outward. Lying to oneself, for example, convincing oneself successfully of a falsehood makes for easier convincing of everyone else. On the flip side, sometimes a disguise begins on the outside and moves in. This has a lot of helpful applications. For example, if you wake up every morning and half smile for 5 minutes, you might have a better day. If you have anxiety, one form of treatment is to do what makes you anxious. Squish yourself into the most crowded subway car. Wear that swimsuit out on a beach first in fall when few people are around, and eventually you'll be okay in August. You will learn that what you believe to be the source of your anxiety is not actually its source at all. That it is not the world outside that causes anxiety, it is the anxiety that births itself, a self-feeding, rapidly multiplying parasite. Some say that vision boards change the outcome of one's future. By seeing the future you want, you internalize it, and thus make it so. Some say the same of prayer. How are you doing, a friend asks. Doing okay, I say. Sometimes it's hard. You should make a vision board, she says. You should create the future you want. But this is not the same world anymore, I want to say. I do not know the language here. Is it a language you care to know? I want my friend to ask. I want to tilt my head in thought, consider this question, and with certainty say no. Forget language, I say, in the scene I do not live, but write with my pen, with words. There's only her breath. Mykonos. From where we stand, everything is in its proper place. Sky and sea ahead, civilization behind. She has always wanted, needed might be more like it, things in their right place. Since she was a little girl, so organized, so tidy. I, on the other hand, bring a disjointed mess wherever I go. The colors, she says, are striking. It's true, I say, simple, contrasting. What more could you want? She closes her eyes, relishes the clean breeze. Do you know infants only see black and white at first, she asks. That's what I heard. You have to grow into your colors, just like everything else. Except us, I say. We never grew into anything. We are both very short women. It's something we can joke about with each other and not many others. We're both short enough that other short people gush about how glad they are to meet us, for they didn't think they'd ever meet anyone shorter than them. I tell her I remember the mobile above my crib. I say, penguins, I think? She's both impressed and proud. The hours, Daddy and I debated. Penguins or monkeys? Penguins or monkeys? Why'd you choose penguins, I ask. I am hoarding whys and hows, collecting every drip of story to sustain me through the coming drought. This, while we look out at this landscape, this wine-dark sea that's not the color of wine at all, that Homer said was the color of wine, but its saturated blue drowning in the fullness of its color. The sky is crisp. We smile at each other's matching faces. You're like twins, everyone says, has always said. An exact replica, identical. In my childhood house just outside my bedroom, there's a single frame that holds 2 high school senior photos, side by side. Both seem to be of the same young woman, 2 portraits from 2 different angles of a dark-haired girl looking into what appear to be 2 different distances, probably meant to represent a future, but which in actuality were nearby mirrored walls behind the photographers. One is black and white, one is in full color. From afar, color saturation seems to be the only difference between the photos of this girl. If you look closer, you'll notice that the girl's hair falls differently in each photo, but it is not the same length in one as in the other. These photos were taken 34 years apart, one in Lincoln High School, Brooklyn, 32 years before the other, one in East Brunswick High School in 2004. Someday she will be gone, and I will still have to look in the mirror. I believe she will travel to Greece. I believe she will travel to Greece. I believe she will travel to Greece. So how, I want to know, can the medicinal value of story be measured? I rummage through overheard details, scale the memory of a photo of a staircase, a white staircase, wade through old conversations, hunt for her laughter, and find it waiting here, in me, in my chest wrapped in gold. I arrange each letter meticulously, vertebra by vertebra, and I stand above this new moment, rearranged from the remains of many, and I pull what is left of my voice from the raging ocean inside of me. We are in Greece. Air smells of brine coasting on a breeze. For all the billions of organisms in the Aegean Sea, it's only that scent I can detect, only the still blue of its surface. The truth is not only, it turns out, what we can see and smell and taste and touch and hear. We hug. She smells like angel perfume or maybe Clingy Cappy. I smell jasmine or lilac or sandalwood. All of this mixes and melds with the fresh laundry she insisted on doing for both of us before we came. When we pull away, she looks at me, and her look is an old chest packed with childhood relics. I want to bottle this up in one of those giant wine bottles on display in Italian restaurants, collect enough to get me through a lifetime. I want to transform this moment into matter. I want this to be something solid I can hold, cool clay for sculpting. I want to put every particle of this moment in the Large Hadron Collider and build a new element, a new universe, a new black hole for us to escape into. And so what I do is I sculpt this into being with words. I invent a future or pray for a future. I invent a future memory as close as I can get to something solid I can hold, a new black hole for us to escape into. I inhale deep through the nose, exhale through the mouth. My eyes open, I rise, steady myself, flex my hand, and keep my pen moving, running, like a manic heartbeat on a monitor as I run toward the horizon.